Hello everyone. Today we're looking at types of clauses. We're looking at types of clauses. Clauses. A clause is a group of words that contains a subject and a verb. It may be the whole sentence or just part of the sentence. So one thing you should know here is that it's a group of words. It's not one word. It's more than one. So it could be two, three classes of words put together. And what you should know here that it should contain a subject and a verb. It should contain a subject, a do of an action, and an action word, which is the verb. Okay? It may be the whole sentence or just part of the sentence. When they mean the whole sentence, if we're talking about the fact that we have a main clause, which is a whole sentence containing one main idea. Okay? And then it could be part of the sentence. That is to say, it could be a subordinate clause. That is a clause that depends on another clause. Usually, a subordinate clause has the subordinating conjunction attached to it. So the conjunction that is attached to it is what gives it the name the subordinate clause. So always remember that subordinate clause will have the subordinating conjunction attached to it. Types of clauses. We have independent clauses, we have dependent clauses, we have noun clauses, we have relative clauses. The relative clauses are also adjectival clauses. That's another name for them. Adjectival clauses. Then we have adverbial clauses. Okay, let me also add that the independent clauses are also called main clause. And then the dependent clauses are also called subordinate clause, as you can see clearly in the bracket. Independent clause. An independent clause is a clause that has a subject and one verb. Okay, it has one subject and one verb. It's also known as simple sentence because it expresses a complete thought. Okay, so it's also known as what? A simple sentence because it expresses a complete thought. For example, the bird flew away. The bird flew away is expressing one thing. The bird, that is the noun phrase. Flew is a verb. And away is added there, which is a complement. Okay, so the bird flew away. This sentence here is an independent clause. When you put a full stop at the end, it is sensible. You have a subject, you have a verb over there. So it's a complete sentence. And then we have I caught the ball. I caught the ball. So I caught the ball here. I the subject, caught is the verb, and the ball is the object. Okay, so this is also a complete sentence. Another example, she studied for her hard test. She studied for her hard test. Okay, so she is the subject, studied is the verb, and then we have for her hard test. For is a preposition, so her hard test is an object of the preposition. You get it? So this sentence is also a simple sentence. When you put a full stop at the end, it makes sense. So it qualifies as a simple sentence. And it's an independent clause. A clause that depends on its own. You don't need to add it to another for it to make sense. No, it makes sense on its own. Dependent clause. A dependent clause is a clause that has one subject and one verb. It does not express a complete thought. That's the key word here. It does not express a complete thought. For example, while I was asleep, after the game ended, since she went to the store. Now, the three examples I've just read, somebody will be asking, yes, while I was asleep, what happened? You know, it leaves a question in your mind. After the game ended, there's a question that will come up in your mind as well here. Since you went to the store, you're going to be thinking about a question, okay? So all these things are dependent clauses. Their meaning will be clear if you add another group of words to it. And those group of words are meant to explain them. They are meant to explain them. you can also see that these sentences here, the examples of sentences we have here, they all start with something. The words that start them are all subordinating conjunctions. That is why they are called subordinate clauses. In the first sentence, for example, we have while. While is a subordinate clause. After is a subordinate clause. That is in the second sentence. Since is a subordinate clause in the third sentence. Right, we're going on. Dependent clause. A dependent clause will always begin with a subordinating conjunction. Like I said earlier, there's always a subordinating conjunction preceding them, that is coming before them. So we have examples of them. We have those for time, where we have after, before, when, since, until, as soon as. Then we have those for cause and effect. Because, so, now that, in order that, as if, whether. Then we have those for condition, condition, as long as, unless, provided that, so long as, if, while. Then we have the one for contrast, contrast, although, even though, whereas, even if, whenever. All these conjunctions here are subordinating conjunctions, and then they have their time and their places. They have their time and their places. Okay, so we should be able to look at them carefully and see when we need each and every one of them to begin the subordinate clause to make that sentence a subordinate clause. Okay, so these subordinating conjunctions will be needed to make the sentence a subordinate clause. Adverbial clause. An adverbial clause, as the name suggests, is going to be a clause that will act like an adverb. It's going to add to the meaning of the verb. So let's read what is there. An adverbial clause is a subordinate clause. So it's a what? A subordinate clause. So in the bracket we have a noun or a verb, but doesn't make sense on its own. That's why it's said to be a subordinate clause. Okay, so it could be a noun or a verb, but doesn't make sense on its own. That modifies a verb, an adjective, or an adverb. So basically, an adverbial clause will modify a verb. You know, adverbs modify verbs, and also they tell us more about the adjectives, or they modify another adverb. So that's what's basically said here. The adverbial clauses are clauses that will tell you more about a verb, an adjective, or an adverb. Alright, looking at adverbial clause, examples of adverbial clauses. I never go swimming unless I have a buddy go with me. I never go swimming unless I have a buddy go with me. The subordinate clause modifies the verb go. Therefore, it's an adverbial clause. Okay, modifies the verb what? Go. Therefore, it's an adverbial clause. The underlying part is what is being referred to here. Now, you know it's preceded by unless. Unless is a conditional subordinating conjunction. It's a conditional one. It tells you the condition under which something is possible. So under what condition do I go swimming? I have a buddy go with me. You get a point here? Unless I have a buddy go with me. So that's the condition under which I go swimming. So that part is subordinate clause. It's telling you about go swimming. So unless I have a buddy go with me, it's telling you about go swimming. You get a point? So it's a subordinate clause which is modifying the verb go swimming. So it's an adverbial subordinate clause. As adverbs modify verbs, adjectives, and another adverb, so do adverbial clauses modify verbs, adjectives, and another adverb. So over here, go swimming is modified by unless I have a buddy go with me. Do you get a point? So it's very clear. Will you lend me that book when you have finished reading it? Will you lend me that book when you have finished reading it? Now over here too, at what time do I want you to lend me the book? So the action is lend me the book, lend. And then under what condition or at what time do I want the learning to be done? So we know we have adverb of time. So when you have finished reading it, is the condition, is the time under which I would like the action to be done. Okay, so when is also an adverb of time, which is added to the whole thing to make it a subordinate clause, which is an adverbial subordinate clause. Do you get it? Because when is an adverb of time, and then it's added to the part of the sentence which is dependent on the other part of the sentence. So when you have finished reading it, is dependent on, will you lend me that book? And it is modifying lend. When you have finished reading it, it's modifying lend. So it's an adverbial clause. The dog looks silly when it chases its tail. The dog looks silly when it chases its tail. So look silly, looks. And at what time does it look silly? When it chases its tail. Okay, so the time is here. The adverb of time is when it chases its tail. Okay, when is the adverb of what time there? It chases its tail is a clause. So having added when to it, it has become an adverbial clause. And it's telling us about the time that the action happens. We're looking at noun clauses. A noun clause is a subordinate clause that act as a noun. We know subordinate clauses are clauses that would depend on another part of the sentence, which is the main clause. Okay, so a noun clause is a subordinate clause that acts as a noun. It acts as a noun, so it's going to name somebody or something or somewhere. It could be a subject, it could be an object, it could be an appositive, it could be a complement. Okay, so remember that as is a noun in a sentence can act as a subject, object of the verb, or object of the preposition. Object of a preposition is simply when the object is preceded by a preposition, when the preposition comes before the object. And it could be an appositive, that is, it is modifying the noun that comes before it. It could be a complement, okay, when it's preceded by some verbs like the verb become, seem, or the verb to do, that is was, were, and the like. Okay, so when all those verbs come before the noun, then the noun is acting as a complement. We're going to go on with the reading. I'm reading the second line. Noun clauses begin with words such as how, that, what, whatever, when, where, whether, which, whichever, who, whoever, whom, whomever, and why. So these are indicators. So as we know, the subordinate clauses, when you've been asked to find out the noun clause in the sentence, look out for these words that are going to precede it. They will come before it. Okay? Noun clauses can act as subject, direct object, indirect object, predicate nominatives, or object of a preposition. Okay? So what I said earlier is what is being said here in different languages. So it's going to act as a subject, it's going to act as an object of the verb, object of a preposition, as a complement, as an appositive. Okay, it's going to play all these roles in the sentence. Now, clause examples. Whoever thought of that idea is a genius. Whoever thought of that idea is a genius. Now, who is a genius? Who is a genius? And here the answer is clearly whoever thought of that idea. Is that not it? Whoever thought of that idea. So you can see that whoever thought of that idea is naming something, is naming a genius. Do you get the point? So in this position is a subject. On Wednesday we can do whatever we want. On Wednesday we can do whatever we want. So we can do what thing? what thing can we do? Whatever we want. Okay, what thing can we do? Can do is a verb. Okay, it's a verb phrase. Can do. On Wednesday is an adverbial beginning the sentence. Okay, then can do is the verb phrase. We is the subject. Okay, and then we can do what? Whatever we want. So whatever we want is the object in the sentence here. And we know that it's preceded by whatever. And whatever we know is one of the words that we expect to precede a subordinate clause. Okay, one of the ways to expect to begin a subordinate clause as far as a noun clause is concerned. I'm reading what is in the bracket. This clause is acting as the direct object of the sentence. It's acting as what? The direct object of the sentence. So what thing is affecting, what thing can we do directly? Whatever we want. Now, we're going to the next sentence. Whichever restaurant you pick is fine with me. Whichever restaurant you pick is fine with me. Now, what is fine with me? What thing is fine with me? Whichever restaurant you pick, right? So whichever restaurant you pick is the noun clause here. Remember, noun clauses will sound like complete sentences. There's going to be a subject, there's going to be a verb, and there could be an object there. But remember, because the subordinate clauses, sometimes there won't be any object, or it could lose a subject but have an object. Okay, so as we have here, whichever is the subject. Restaurant you pick. Okay, whichever restaurant is what's the name of the phrase there? Whichever restaurant you pick, and pick is a subject, right? Sorry, pick is the verb, right? Good. So whichever restaurant you pick is fine with me. So this whole thing is naming something. What is fine with me? Whichever restaurant you pick, right? We're gonna go on to the next one. My greatest asset is that I am a hard worker. My greatest asset is that I'm a hard worker. Now, what thing is my greatest asset? What thing is my greatest asset? I'm a hard worker, right? That I'm a hard worker is my greatest asset. So this whole phrase, that I'm a hard worker, is a noun clause. It's naming asset. It's naming my greatest asset, right? It's telling about the thing that I say is my greatest asset. And that thing is that I'm a hard worker. Remember, it's preceded by the pronoun there, that. It's preceded by the pronoun that. Okay? Relative clause. The relative clause, like I told you, are adjectival clauses. And as adjectives, they will tell you more about the subject. They will tell you more about the object. They will tell you more about the name of the person in the sentence, or they tell you about the thing in the sentence. So basically, they will be modifying the noun in the sentence. I'm going to read now. A relative clause will begin with who, whom, that, which, whose, where, when. So a relative clause will begin with any of these words. We have who, whom, that, which, whose, where, when. They are used to give extra information about something without adding an extra sentence. So they are used to what? Add extra information about what? Something. Something, a noun. Something is a noun. A name of a thing. A noun is the name of a thing. So something is a noun. So relative clauses are going to name something. So looking at examples of relative clauses. The winner, who was 25, will receive $1,000. The winner, who was 25, will receive $1,000. Now, over here, we can see that which winner are we talking about? Which winner are we describing? Who was 25? So who was 25 is telling us more about the winner. Can you see that? Who was 25 is telling us more about the winner. We have a subject who. Was is the verb. 25 is the object. And it's acting in the position of describing the winner. So it's a relative clause. And as I said, relative clause is an adjectival clause. So it's describing the winner. I'm reading what is in the bracket. Who is the subject? Was is the verb. The clause is giving extra information about the winner, but it is not a complete thought on its own. It's not a complete thought on its own. Can you see that? Do you see the cat which is lying on the roof? Do you see the cat which is lying on the roof? Now, which cat are we talking about? Which is lying on the roof. So which is lying on the roof is pointing towards the cat we're talking about, right? So we can basically conclude that which is lying is a relative clause. It's a relative clause. And also note that relative clauses begin with relative pronouns. Okay, we're going to go to the next one. I don't like the table that stands in the kitchen. I don't like the table that stands in the kitchen. Now, which table am I talking about? That stands in the kitchen. You see, so that stands is telling us more about the table. All right? So this is a relative clause. And we should note that they are adjectival clauses. Okay?